Here's a piece of the Haney test. And what I love about the Haney test is it quantifies nutrients in the soil, plus it quantifies biology. And it does that through a CO2 burst. And at the lab, they take some of the soil that's dried, they measure it out and put it in basically a mason jar. They add some water into it, they incubate it or wait for 24 hours, and then they see how much CO2 came out of that soil in 24 hours. Usually, a good healthy soil has a CO2 burst around 100, 150. I like to see healthy soils get into that 250, 350 kind of range. Well, Josh has a score over 500. This is not the highest ever, Josh. I have seen over 1,000 before, but 500 is humming and really rocking and rolling. Josh, let me turn things over to you. Talk about your operation and how the heck did you get your soil biology basically more than double a healthy, good functioning soil?
Yeah, yeah, I'm in north central Iowa. I'd say an hour from Albert Lee, Minnesota, and an hour from Ames. Kind of in the heart of the prairie pothole region here. So it's flat and black, but the issue we face a lot of times is that our soils get anaerobic because they just don't have gas exchange.
Mm.
Um, Quite often that's because we have guys out here making 7, 8, 9, 10 passes of tillage in a year, because if it's not powder and blowing, it must not grow anything. But on this farm, it's kind of become my new model for a lot of stuff. Working with you guys, Carolyn, and everybody else there at Continuum. This field has a 3 crop rotation on it, so it goes corn, soybeans, and then cereal rye. What that I harvest as a cover crop seed. And after the cereal rye is off, then I plant a diverse mix. I think this mix was 12 different species. Um, and then I strip till it in the fall. And so I didn't put any synthetic fertilizer down. Um, at the time, um, I when you guys took those samples, I think we were in the middle of a pretty wet period. We went from a drought to getting about 30 or about 2/3 of our annual precipitation in the month of May.
Yeah.
And so at one point there was a river flowing through that field that y'all sampled up there. Um, but I think it shows the resilience of the biology because while I do have field tile, that field did suffer. But at the end of the year, it was probably one of our best fields.
That's great.
Most of the guys around here were getting 150, 160 bushel corn because everything ran out of gas. All my nutrient application was in season, along with taking biomass samples and doing all the things that, Rick and other people are doing on their farms. Um, so I think it shows the resilience. Similarly, I've got another field about 10 miles to the south that was relay crop this year is rye and soybeans, on the lightest farm that I have. So it was going through this drought, it was going through everything else. By the book, it should have been an abject disaster, but it was 60 bushel beans and 30 bushel rye.
That's it.
Um, so it demonstrates the ability of soils from across not just one type, but a diversity of soils to sustain a lot and to be resilient and recover and actually yield.
And Josh, let me make sure I'm getting this right. So it's obviously a theme back to the soil health principles again, right? Minimizing disturbance. Down your neck of the woods, it's Des Moines lobe, heavy, flat, black soils, right? Where
Right.
vegetable tillage is pretty much everybody, but you're doing strip till, right, to minimize the disturbance. No fall applications of nutrients. You were talking about just split applying in the spring, so minimizing or optimizing nutrient application there. Diverse cover crops, diverse crop rotation, of course, maintaining cover crops, and then on this, so all those things, of course, leading to. Hey, it works, and we're getting the biological and soil health response, and of course, the yield that you said. That's how we're actually paying for this stuff at the end of the day. Having a great soil health score, a great CO2 burst, that's awesome. But it's when it equates into dollars in your pocket at the end of the day. That's, of course, why this matters. The data is just an indicator to help us
Hmm.
move in the right direction. And ultimately, it's got to make money. It's got to be profitable. So am I tracking that right? And then you've been playing with
Correct.
a lot of different biological products and stuff as well, right? And humics and
Yeah.
things. Did any of that factor in on this, or not necessarily?
Um, the so I put a when I planted this year, I put a blend down of humic acid and kelp and yucca extracts, and I I put those out the back of the planter along with some nitrogen and boron, and I do believe that that probably helped with stress mitigation for a lot of my corn. Mind you, that the other fields that haven't been in the system nearly as long had half the yield that I got on this one field, but they also got, you know, the nearest field to this one got I finished planting. It was the last field I planted on May 20th, and then we got 8.5 inches of rain that week. So
Yeah.
I wanted to replant that field, but it wasn't dry until the last week of July. So I wasn't about to go stick my planter in the mud. Uh, but that said, it did help on the fields that had a chance to recover. And I did this on my beans, I did it on my corn, I did it on my rye. The fields that had an opportunity to recover from the rains showed that stress mitigation, it showed the resilience, and it showed that I didn't need a whole crap ton of fungicide
Yeah.
or anything else, because the plants were healthy enough to handle the stuff that was getting thrown at them and then recover. Um, and so I do
So,
credit a lot of that.
so is it more so though it's the soil health principles that were leading to the soil biological response that we saw the CO2 burst from the Heaney test, and then some of the products that you're applying and some of the specialty stuff that you're utilizing, that was more on the crop health side, and the combo is then what created the awesome yield and
Yeah,
positive.
it's the above and below ground interaction. So
Okay.
I don't think that I would have gotten off to, like, going back to these fields. I've had every single one of my fields Haney tested
Yeah.
multiple times,
Yeah.
and not all of them, the ones that have been in a soil health system longer, have better CO2. They've got better, max
Sure.
percentages. They've got
Makes
better carbon
sense, right?
cycling and
Once
nutrient
again,
cycling.
the test actually works and actually shows
Yeah,
what we expect. Imagine that, right?
yeah, and it shows that it's not a growing medium where you got to maintain certain base saturation levels or everything's going to fall apart. Based on your test and based on tissue analysis that I did, I had fields that I applied potassium to, and then I had this field where I had no applied potassium for 4 years, and the levels on this field were at equal to or above the fields that I've been putting 150 pounds of potash on. So it
Yeah.
just goes to show that this idea that if we don't do something to help this crop, everything's going to die is a little bit of a misplaced idea. We have to do something. We're farmers. It's not like we're just going to go out there and seed and then golf the rest of the summer. We actually have to work, but it doesn't need to be this extreme anxiety experience where we think every time the weather changes, uh, we're gonna go broke and have to find a new job.
That's awesome. You can go golf during the winter time down in Arizona like Rick's doing here. No, Josh, that's awesome. And just again, a testament that, hey, this actually is making sense and giving us some indication of, all right, are we moving in the right direction? Are we not? And of course, as we get more biology to function, we can cut back on our inputs. Now,